Jai, for a quick update or review, we're studying the third canto, discussions between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. And Maitreya has described the creation by Brahma and the beginning of the populations of the universe through Manu and his wife Sadarupa. So we're reading about Swayambhuva Manu's descendants, in this case, their daughter, Devahuti. But prior to hearing about her, we've been reading about Kardama Muni, her expected husband. And that was the last few weeks. This week, we're studying more about Swayambhuva Manu himself and Devahuti and her character. So let us get into those topics. This is the November 2022 lessons 3 and 4 section. Third canto, chapter 22, texts 21 through 23. Sri Maitreya said, "O great warrior Vidura, the sage Kardama said this much only, and then became silent, thinking of his worshipable Lord Vishnu, who was a lotus on his navel, who has a lotus on his navel. As he silently smiled, his face captured the mind of Devahuti, who began to meditate upon the great sage." So obviously the group is there. Swayambhuva Manu, Sadarupa have brought Devahuti to the hermitage, and they were just greeted by Kardama Muni. After having unmistakably known about the decision of the queen, as well as that of Devahuti, the emperor most gladly gave his daughter to the sage, whose host of virtues was equaled by hers. Empress Sadarupa lovingly gave most valuable presents suitable for the occasion, such as jewelry, clothes, and household articles, in dowry to the bride and bridegroom. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The custom of giving one's daughter in charity with a dowry is still current in India. The gifts are given according to the position of the father of the bride. Paribarhan Mahadanam means the dowry which must be awarded to the bridegroom at the time of marriage. Here, Mahadanam means equally valuable gifts befitting the dowry of an empress. The words Bhushavasa Parichadan also appear here. Bhusha means ornaments, Vasaha means clothing, and Parichadan means various household articles. All the things befitting the marriage ceremony of an emperor's daughter were awarded to Kardama Muni, who was until now observing celibacy as a brahmachari. The bride, Devahuti, was very richly dressed with ornaments and clothing.
Do you want to comment on that?
No, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. She was decked out.
Is like that. Going to the forest, all decked out. Very far out. Okay, let's start with Sham Govinda. Would you like to read? Can you read with baby there? Or maybe...
Yeah, I can try.
Okie dokie.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:22, text 24 and 25. Thus relieved of his responsibility by handing over his daughter to a suitable man, Swayambhuva Manu, his mind agitated by feelings of separation, embraced his affectionate daughter with both his arms. The emperor was unable to bear the separation of his daughter. Therefore, tears poured from his eyes again and again, drenching his daughter's head as he cried, "My dear mother, my dear daughter." Purport. The word Amba is significant. A father sometimes addresses his daughter in affection as mother, and sometimes as my darling. The feeling of separation occurs because until the daughter is married, she remains the daughter of the father. But after her marriage, she is no longer claimed as a daughter in the family. She must go to the husband's house. for after marriage she becomes the property of the husband. According to Manu Samhita, a woman is never independent. She must remain the property of the father while she is not married, and she must remain the property of the husband until she is elderly or has grown-up children of her own. In old age, when the husband has taken sannyas and left home, she remains the property of the sons. A woman is always dependent, either upon the father, husband, or elderly sons. That will be exhibited in the life of Devahuti. Devahuti's father handed over responsibility for her to the husband, Kadama Muni. The same way, Kadama Muni also left home, giving the responsibility to his son, Kapiladev. This narration will describe these events one after another.
Okay, now I have a question for you, because some of these things were a little controversial, but we have to understand them very deeply and very spiritually. What does this mean, property? What does it mean that someone is a property of someone else? What does that mean? Shyam Govinda, can you answer? Can you say something about that?
I'll try. I mean, obviously I'm married. I'm not thinking that Shamadashini is mine. I'm thinking that we're put together to try and serve the Lord. And so I'm just trying to facilitate both of us serving to the greatest possible extent. But Shamadashini's efforts and herself is not in my possession. We're just working together. That's how I understand it.
I see. Anyone else have something to say about that? Because I got a really good answer.
Property also means we have to protect that.
Very good. Very good. And how do we protect it? Like an item on the shelf? Like, here's a nice bag of rice. I don't want the mice to eat it. Do we just protect it, like put it high on a shelf and forget about it? How could we protect?
Like children, we have to protect them from, whatever, however, how much ever we could.
Yes. Based on love. I was also thinking that if you have a diamond, very special jewel, a diamond, you just do everything. Your most valuable possession, you do everything to protect and facilitate. So it's not that the person is unworthy. The husband is unworthy. The husband has to be worthy to give protection, and real protection is engaging together in Krishna's service. But if a woman is protected, she feels safe. Okay, let's get some, how about you, Premananda, and then Ekaradika?
Yeah, I was about to give the exactly same example that at least in Indian, my culture, girls or women are considered real wealth, Sometimes we call them Lakshmi. So when a father gives his daughter to the husband, to the groom, he says, okay, I'm giving my Lakshmi to you. So your example of wealth or diamond is appropriate. So that's
the most precious possession.
Exactly.
The most precious. And if you don't take care, I mean, you know how many wars have been fought because of the value of a woman? You see, we have to understand that this is not an ordinary thing. If a father gives a daughter, and all husbands, of course, this is Kali Yuga, but in an ideal world, everyone must appreciate each other. What to speak of a father giving a daughter with a dowry to a trustworthy person. This is not an ordinary thing. This is something to be respected, even at the cost of life. What did Lord Ram do to protect Sita?
Right.
Killed off a whole race. So this is a nice comeback for women to feel valued. Of course, it's not that you just sit there being valued. Everything is service. Everything one serves, we serve each other. And thank you for that. Radhika?
I was thinking, Mataji, that like that prediction for me is to just do things according to what the Guru says and what Krishna says. And so, like, a lot of the times, even now, it might feel like a control. But if somebody is helping you just to live in that way, it is really not control. It is really helping you to come to, acting in the way that we're supposed to be acting. So.
And control, actually, to tell you the truth, why do we have the regulated principles of religion? We in the Kali Yuga need to be controlled. We need to put ourselves in a position where we will be able to control our senses. So control is not such a bad term. But this is going to get deeper and better as we go on. So I don't want to take all the time on this, but go on.
Yeah, just try to clarify, that so people don't have that sense of control, like the definition, like it's a bad thing, to understand it, like it's help, and that's the real love.
Right, but then it does take submission on the other party's part, and one can only be submissive to someone who is worthy, right? That's why the example of the Guru is very good. Let's go on now with Shukshma Rupini, my dear god sister, who I see here. Can you read for us, Shukshma? Ask to unmute. Unmute, Shukshma. Oh, please, sweetie, I want you to read for us.
She drives a truck, and sometimes she just listens. I don't know if she's actually
Well,
driving.
I did
now
see
or
her.
not.
Okay, sweet. Okay, we'll get back to Shukshma. Tisha, why don't you read?
Okay, thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:22, verse 26 and 27. After asking and obtaining the great sage's permission to leave, the monarch mounted his chariot with his wife and started for his capital, followed by his retinue. Along the way, he saw the prosperity of the tranquil seers, beautiful hermitages on both the charming banks of the Saraswati, the river so agreeable to saintly persons. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. As cities are constructed in the modern age with great engineering and architectural craftsmanship, so in days gone by, there were neighborhoods called Rishi Kulas, where great saintly persons resided. In India, there are still many magnificent places for spiritual understanding. There are many rishis and saintly persons living in nice cottages on the banks of the Ganges and Yamuna for purposes of spiritual cultivation. While passing through the Rishi Kulas, the king and his party were very much satisfied with the beauty of the cottages and hermitages. It is stated here, Pasyan Ashrama Sampada. The great sages had no skyscrapers, but the hermitages were so beautiful that the king was very much pleased at the sight.
You have to unmute, Sama.
What is another term that we can use in place of Rishi Kula? What is very valuable, one of the most valuable things in becoming a devotee, being a devotee. One of the 5 most important things. I gave you a lot of hints. What do you hanker? What?
Devotee association.
Yes, Association of Devotees. So that would be Rishi Kula also, where there's a group of devotees living together. We always want that kind of association. That's what we're doing here at Sadhu Sangha, because Association of Devotees is so precious and so important for our spiritual lives. Okay, shall we, is that okay? Tisha, do you have something to add to that?
No, I thought that was a beautiful passage.
Tisha, did you, are you okay with the explanation of property? Because you wrote on a forum that there were some issues in this particular section. So that explanation, did that satisfy you, or was there still some lingering question about what he's talking about and how it's being presented?
Thank you, Prabhu. I think that that part of it wasn't the part that hurt me, that affected me so much. I just think the context trying, I guess in my thoughts about it, the context of understanding that we're talking about a different yuga here, but it is very dangerous for young girls and women to read something like that and stay in abusive situations because they think that this is the proper thing to do that's going to get them, you know, to like people. So
I know what you're referring to. We didn't get to it yet, and I was saving the explanation for
Okay,
that.
so let's read it when we get
point.
to that particular thing. I just wanted to clarify the property element because it's actually a very dear thing to the individuals. It's not
Right.
something that can be bought and sold like slavery or something.
right.
Okay, so we're getting, there's a lot of different points that actually we have to discuss in this section. But now I see Sukshma. Are you able to read? Sukshma, can you read next? Unmute, darling. Thank you, Tisha.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, great. There's Sukshma reading the next slide.
Overjoyed. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay. Overjoyed to know of Swayambhuva Manu's arrival, his subjects came forth from Brahmavarta to greet their returning with songs, prayers, and musical instruments. In the custom of the citizens of a kingdom's capital to receive the king when he returns from a tour, it is the custom. There is a similar description when Krishna returned to Dwarka after the battle of Kurukshetra. At that time, he was received by all classes of citizens at the gate of the city. Formerly, capital cities were surrounded by walls, and there were different gates for regular entrance. Even in Delhi today, there are old gates, and some other old cities have such gates where citizens would gather to receive the king. Here also, the citizens of Barhishmati, the capital of Brahmavarta, the kingdom of Swayambhuva, came nicely dressed to receive the emperor with decorations and musical instruments. What a time.
Yeah.
An opulent, wonderful time. It's interesting.
Yuga.
We had gates. Yeah, wow. And that some of the gates are still standing.
Yeah. Do you know
But
that
not
place in Delhi?
Mm,
What was that?
no. I said they're
Yeah,
not used, I guess.
No. But there are actually many people come to see the gate. Which gate is that in that fort, Pati, in Delhi?
I forget the name. Premananda, do you know?
Premananda? What's the name of the Pandavas actually said that the Pandavas did, that was their fort.
Oh, wow.
God, what is it?
This is a red fort, I know. Is that the one?
The Red Fort, the Red Fort, that's what it's called. We don't know any other further description,
Right.
but that's where the Pandavas, I mean, that was a glorious age. You know, we're just trying to become human beings in this age. So if we can get that down, then we're going to be moving up.
I also wanted to bring up the point that previously we had some discussions between Swayambhuva Manu and Kardama Muni about the situations of different sections of the Varnashram system, the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas, how they cooperated and worked together. And we had some nice forum discussions, but nobody really brought up the point that the Varnashram system actually requires a good king. Just like in chess, you can have all kinds of pieces on the board still. But if you don't have the king, you lose the game. So similarly, although people may have particular tendencies and engage in those, and all societies have these different features, without a king and a government to organize and enforce or help it run smoothly, then it's like a chessboard without it. And the personality of the king, we read previously, those who've been with us for so many years, about King Yudhisthira and during his time, so beloved by everyone. So similarly, when Swayambhuva Manu returned to the kingdom, it was actually an act of love. Everybody came out just like Krishna when he came back to Dwarka. Everybody, or when Krishna comes back from the cowherd days, everybody is so in love with him that they just want to go out to the gates. And when he returns to the city or the town, to receive him nicely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Shall we go on? That was beautiful presentation. Thank you, Patti. How about Premananda? Would you like to continue reading?
Yes, Mataji.
Thank you, Shukshmaji.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:22, 29 through 30. The city of Barhismati, rich in all kinds of wealth, was so called because Lord Vishnu's hair dropped there from his body when he manifested himself as Lord Boar. As he shook his body, this very hair fell and turned into blades of evergreen, kusa grass, and kasha, another kind of grass used for mats, by means of which the sages worshipped Lord Vishnu after defeating the demons who had interfered with the performance of their sacrifices. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Any place directly connected with the Supreme Lord is called Pithasthana. Barhismati, the capital of Swayambhuva Manu, was exalted not because the city was very rich in wealth and opulence, but because the hairs of Lord Varaha fell at this very spot. These hairs of the Lord later grew as green grass, and the sages used to worship the Lord with that grass after the time when the Lord killed the demon Hiranyaksha.
Wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful.
Patti, did you want to say something?
No?
Okay, so what is this? Reminded me of something really wonderful that we read last week. What was considered a wonderful place because they were the tears of the Lord. Do you remember? We just read it where Kartamuni actually met Lord.
Bindu Sarovar?
Yeah, teacher's saying yes. Teacher, thank you, Premanandaji. Did you have something to comment on what
I have
you read?
a question. I have a
Oh,
question.
she has a question. Okay, ready.
In my timeline mind. So what's the timeline like? Was Hiranyaka killed recently before this scenario is playing out? Are we in the same
Hiranyaksha.
Hiranyaksha? And where is Hiranyakashipu at this time? Is he doing like his tapasya? Is this all in the same time frame?
Okay, Patti, that's for you.
Yes. Actually, we read how Brahma, when he was creating, we remember that the 4 Kumaras came from his body, and then Lord Shiva came from between his eyes, and the different nine different sages appeared. Some of them are Prajapatis. And then still he was frustrated because the creation wasn't filling up as quickly and nicely as he wanted. So it was described that from his body, a male form and a female form appeared. And that's Manu and Sadarupa. Right. And then he explained to Manu, okay, now you please propagate and you write down the proper codes for humanity so that they can live in smooth reciprocation with one another. And Brahma said, Manu explained that I'll do what you say, but first, please do something about this place of their residence. This planet has fallen into the Garbhodaka ocean and requires to be lifted out so that I can make a place for the living entities to live. And at that time, Lord Brahma was considering what to do about the dweep that had fallen into the ocean, and the little boar came out of his nose and brought the earth out. Now that was the white incarnation, the Sweta Varaha. The Chakshusha Manu was the later one with Hiranyaksha. So according to that description, it's not quite clear if Hiranyaksha has already been killed, but Barhismati is there, and that came from Lord Boar's hairs. So it's unclear if that's right at the same time or what.
You know what, I was just thinking of this because we had a reading the other day, and I was trying to figure out something also and someone said, are you trying to do this linear thing? Just imagine, we are teeny weeny bikini living entities and we live for 100 years according to our little thing. And then there are Manvantaras and Lord Brahma, and they are living, it's the same time, but they're living, enormous amount of years. It is, you can't even compare it, the length of time. So there's a lot of things going on, just like ants can't understand what's going on above them or that there's a big cliff coming. It's a little hard for us to conceive of the enormity of the living entities who are far surpass us in intelligence and lifespan and size. So, you know, if we get a little confused about the time frame, it's confusing. I mean, you know, sometimes achintya, that means inconceivable, the lucky word, inconceivable, you know, that saves us all the time. Okay, so let's go on with Eka Radhika. Could you read for us, Nali?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3.22.31. Manu spread a seat of kushas and kashas and worshipped the Lord, the personality of Godhead, by whose grace he had obtained the rule of the terrestrial globe. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Those who are in better position in the world, having sufficient wealth, should especially take lessons from Manu, who acknowledged his kingdom and opulence to be gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus always engaged in devotional service. Similarly, the descendants of Manu, or human beings, especially those who are situated in a well-to-do condition, must consider that whatever riches they have are gifts from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those riches should be utilized for the service of the Lord in sacrifices performed to please Him. And that is the way of utilizing wealth and opulence. No one can achieve wealth, opulence, good birth, a beautiful body, or nice seat education without the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, those who are in possession of such valuable facilities must acknowledge their gratefulness to the Lord by worshiping Him and offering what they have received from Him. When such acknowledgement is given, either by a family, nation, or society, their abode becomes almost like Vaikuntha, and it becomes free from the operation of the threefold miseries of the material world.
Very good. You have something to add to that?
I was thinking, like it's so, it's more common with people in the mode of goodness to, when they find like a wallet, for example, to return it, if they can return it. And so it's like, this is not mine. I have to give it to the proper owner. But when we're thinking about many things that, that we believe that are ours, we're not remembering that they're not ours and that there is a proprietor, and that's why we offer them before to the Lord, So remember, that's what came to mind, just remembering that.
Okay. That's sweet. Very good. It's only polite. Prabhupada said on a tape one time, thank you. We should say thank you. Be grateful for what we're given. What we think everything is coming to us automatically. I mean, in a way it is, but this gratefulness it's a companion to humility, which is actually the first symptom of knowledge. Humility. Says that in the Bhagavad Gita. Thank you, Eka. Okay, let's go on. Chaitamayi, would you read this for us, please?
Dandavat pranams, everyone. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:22, 32, and 33. Having entered the city of Barhismati, in which he had previously lived, Manu entered his palace, which was filled with an atmosphere that eradicated the three miseries of material existence. Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed life with his wife and subjects and fulfilled his desires without being disturbed by unwanted principles contrary to the process of religion. Celestial musicians and their wives sang in chorus about the pure reputation of the emperor, And early in the morning, every day, he used to listen to the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead with a loving heart. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic principles are designed in such a way that the conditioned souls who have come to this material existence may be guided in fulfilling their material desires and at the same time be liberated and go back to Godhead, back home. It is understood that Emperor Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed his household life by following these principles. It is stated here that early in the morning, there were musicians who used to sing with musical instruments about the glories of the Lord. And the emperor with his family personally used to hear about the pastimes of the Supreme Person. Haribol.
Okay. Haribol, I had to leave for half a second. Someone was at the door, but do
Okay.
you want to comment on that, sweetie?
I just so grateful to hear that the same practices that we take on as devotees were practiced thousands of years ago as a really effective science to keep us in touch with reality. And this idea of being woken up to kirtan and bhajans, and then throughout the day, and then night before you go to bed, the same thing happens. It took me a long time as a devotee to realize the value of time spent like this. But finally, the light is going on, and it's such a nice way to conduct your day. It's so supportive of spiritual practice to be constantly in smaranam and shravanam.
Always. Every moment of the day, remember Krishna. Every moment. Prabhupada said 24/7. So
Right.
that's actually a makes one happy. Puts you on the transcendental platform. I see kind of Radhika, do you want to say something? You keep on just smiling like anything about this.
I was just thinking these days because I go to virtually to Srimad Bhagavatam class every day, and it's like I was just feeling, because these classes are so wonderful with all these great devotees, and I was just thinking we are so fortunate. We're so fortunate. We're so fortunate, and like sometimes we forget that we're so fortunate because we're doing all of these things.
Yeah.
But then it's like you get these chills, like these are the things that today they were talking about the Goswamis being the Manjaris and all of these Maharajas here that are like no ordinary people, and this is the contact we have. So it's so amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. Thank you. Fati, did you want to say something about that too?
Kind of connecting it with what Chaitanya said, it's not just thousands of years ago, it's actually billions of years ago that Manu is performing these activities, and it's the practice. He's one of the fathers. Prabhupada explained in one of the purports that Manu, the word manusya, and the word man actually comes from the Sanskrit word meaning manusya, men, or Manu. He's the father. He's like the first example of a king, of a proper human being. And he wrote the Manu Smriti. I put that one image up before, and I think it comes against ones later. Manu Smriti is not really a spiritual text. It's a guideline for mankind how to live in harmony with one another, but at the same time elevate to the spiritual platform by proper action. And of course, his sadhana, as you pointed out, is the method. So that's why it's important that each one of us develop some sort of a daily sadhana where we're remembering and hearing about the Lord. It's extremely important. It's essential. Otherwise, we'll think of so many other things.
Right.
Okay. Well, now I'm getting very excited because the next two slides are very dear to me. And there's one of them. So who would like to read? Who's going to read next? Manvantara. Please read this very wonderful description of how we can remember Krishna 24 hours a day. You have to unmute.
Text 34.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Can everyone hear you?
Yes, you can just
Yeah,
adjust your computer
we-
if you need it.
Yeah, oh, okay, okay. Thanks.
Thus, Swayambhuva Manu was a saintly king. Although absorbed in material happiness, he was not dragged to the lowest grade of life, for he always enjoyed his material happiness in a Krishna-conscious atmosphere. Purport. The kingly happiness of material enjoyment generally drags one to the lowest grade of life, namely degradation to animal life, because of unrestricted sense enjoyment. But Swayambhuva Manu was considered as good as a saintly sage, because the atmosphere created in his kingdom and home was completely Krishna conscious. The case is similar with the conditioned souls in general. They have come into this material life for sense gratification. But if they are able to create a Krishna conscious atmosphere, as depicted here, or as prescribed in revealed scriptures by temple worship and household deity worship, then in spite of their material enjoyment, they can make advancement in pure Krishna consciousness without a doubt.
Yes. And do you want to say something about that?
Are
I know
those
you-
deities? Is that your-
That's Lord Chaitanya. That's our Lord Chaitanya, Gaur Nataraj. And we have a steady puja that Srila Prabhupada actually, oh, there's my lords. That's Radha Govinda Gopinath.
Right.
That's our, and Prabhupada told me to worship Lord Chaitanya in my home. So I took it a step further. When we moved to India, I couldn't go on the altar to dress the deities, which was my service, one of my services in Los Angeles many, many years ago. And so we got Radha Govinda Gopinath, and we've been worshiping this deity of Lord Chaitanya. I've had him for probably 45 years. And then Radha Govinda Gopinath, we've had them, everybody installed, and we've been doing this for about 36 years. We've been worshiping these deities. And it really, really is a wonderful way to remember Krishna. You know, he is the center of our home, and you do it. He's what we do. We there's no doubt about it. So I'm sure other people have deities that they love and that they worship. So I would love to see those pictures of those deities. So maybe you can put them in the forum, because it helps you to fall in love with Krishna. Helps you to think. And this morning I had to hurry up. We get up early, we chant all around, and then I had to do the full puja, and then the Zoom, and then we have a meeting, and then 64 rounds of Ekadasi. I mean, you know, from remembering Krishna all day, you get really, at night there's no insomnia. That's for sure.
I think Manvantara, you also, I know you have some services on Sunday, right? You go to the Alachua temple and cook the Raj Bhoga?
Unmute, darling.
Yeah, that's right. I have to, that's where I was actually. That's why I was late. I had to catch the farmer's market to get some boga. And then, you know, I do the prep at night and then go to the temple and cook. Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
I love it.
Yeah, it keeps you thinking about the Lord all the time. When you know, I used to dress the big deities in the temple and years ago, and you're always thinking, "What am I going to put on the Lord?" And then we go on Sankirtan to start talking to the people out there about the Lord. I don't know; they probably didn't have a clue what I was saying. Like, I'm going to put on this outfit on Krishna. What are you going to wear tomorrow? I know someone. Yeah, it's just hypnotizing, actually. If we're hypnotized by Krishna, that's like the perfection of our lives. Okay, thank you. Okay, so thank you, Manvantaraji. Faye, would you like to read for us, Faye? And then Ian. Faye?
Good morning. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.22.35. Consequently, although his duration of life gradually came to an end, his long life, consisting of a Manvantara era, was not spent in vain, since he ever engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, and chanting the pastimes of the Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Swayambhuva Manu's life did not become stale after some time, for he engaged himself always in chanting about and meditating upon Lord Vishnu. He was the greatest yogi because he never wasted his time. It is especially mentioned here, Vishnu Korvatu Bruvata Kata. When he talked only of Krishna and Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. When he heard something, it was about Krishna. When he meditated, it was upon Krishna and his activities. It is stated that his life was very long, 71 yugas. One yuga is completed in 4,320,000 years. 71 of such yugas is the duration of the life of a Manu, and 14 such Manus come and go in one day of Brahma. For the entire duration of his life, 4,320,000 times 71 years, Manu engaged in Krishna consciousness by chanting, hearing, talking about, and meditating upon Krishna. Therefore, his life was not wasted, nor did it become stale.
Wow. Okay, Faye, what do you think about this purport?
I got to get busy. Happily so. I'm amazed at how long the life of a Manu is. And I'm very happy that he spent the entirety of that time properly engaged in thoughts of Krishna. It gives us all something to aspire to. Granted, we're not going to live that long, but it certainly makes it crucial to our spiritual growth and development to use every moment we have wisely and to not waste it and go stale, because Krishna consciousness and love of Krishna is precious.
Right. And what about this word contemplating? This is really, really important, not only for Manu, but it says something about everyone. We're so passionate in this world. We don't give a moment to think about it. We think we did it, it's done, let's move on. And there's, it makes it, but if you meditate on what you're doing, this is called being in present time, being in the moment. Being in the moment means that you're totally conscious in the moment.
Yes.
So this contemplation is very important, especially when we're chanting and when we're engaging in Krishna's service. We want to be totally conscious, right?
Yes, ma'am. Those deeper thoughts are completely different when they're deeper thoughts about Krishna, and Krishna's pastimes and serving him. It's so easy as our mind is flickering to accidentally and unintentionally engage in thoughts that are really wasting time.
And what's that verse? What's that verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Contemplation on the objects of the senses. Then we start to become attracted to it.
Yes,
so we have to do the work. We have to do the work. It's we know what to do, but unless we do the work, then we won't have that realization. We'll miss the boat. We'll miss the boat. Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
Just want to take a minute to kind of link this to a prior topic. We were talking about the chronological time. Tisha had asked about what's going on. If you live 4,320,000 times 71 years, the relative element of time is totally different than what we are experiencing in 100 years or 80 years on this planet. Like I was trying to see, okay, how old is Devahuti? Because Kardamamoni had been performing yoga for 10,000 years. So how old was he when Swayambhuva Manu came? And how old was the daughter? And she's going to bear children. But the time figure in that kind of a relativity is very different than we can conceive of. I couldn't even do the math. 4 million times 71. That's how I came up with it's over 1 billion. And that's one lifetime for them. Just like Srila Prabhupada explained that an ant, its relative time life, or that of a bug that lives for one evening, that's 100 years for that living entity.
That's it.
Because every living entity gets 100 years of life
Right.
in their form.
Right. So it might feel like, whoa, they live so long, but it's 100 years and everything's relative. So we can do what Manu did in what seems like a really long time. We have that much time relatively, and we can give our whole lives to contemplating on Krishna. And to the extent that we do that, then we'll get the goal of life, Very wonderful. Thank you. Ian, how are you, Ian?
Okay, everybody, can you hear me?
Very loud and clear.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Okay, 3.2236. He passes time which lasted 71 cycles of 4 ages, that's 71 times 4,320,000 years. Always thinking of Vasudeva and always engaged in matters regarding Vasudeva. Thus he transcended the 3 destinations. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The 3 destinations are meant for persons who are under the control of the 3 modes of material nature. These destinations are sometimes described as awakened, dreaming, and unconscious stages. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 3 destinations are described as the destinations of persons in the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is stated in the Gita that those who are in the mode of goodness are promoted to better living conditions in higher planets, and those who are in the mode of passion remain within this material world on the earth or on heavenly planets. While those who are in the mode of ignorance are degraded to an animal life on planets where life is lower than human. But one who is in Krishna consciousness is above these 3 modes of material nature. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that anyone who engages in devotion service to the Lord automatically becomes transcendental to the 3 destinations of material nature and is situated in the Brahma Bhuta or self-realized stage. Although Swayambhuva Manu, the ruler of this material world, appeared to be absorbed in material happiness, he was neither in the mode of goodness nor the modes of passion or ignorance, but in the transcendental stage.
Wonderful.
Wow.
Isn't that wonderful, huh? What do you think?
Yeah.
I want you to comment on this, and then we're going to move along because we want to get to that other subject
Oh,
matter that we
okay,
spoke of.
okay.
But I want you to tell me what you think about this, or not being affected by the modes of nature, although he was enjoying in some way, but in a spiritual way. What do you think, Ian?
Yeah, so I recall the story of the Brahmana, Krishna's in the Krishna Lila, where the Brahmana came to visit him, and he didn't really get anything while he left Krishna, but when he went home, his home life, everything was so spiritually, it was so much different, and it is said that he enjoyed life without being degraded. So I'm thinking, yes, your man living so much, although it's relative, as Prabhu says, in time, but living a very long life will not be affected by opulence as most of us today. Most times we get degraded when we get a look opulence.
Right. Were you talking about
so
Sudama Vipra?
that's the story. Yes.
the story. He
Yes.
received so much opulence, and
Yes. Yes.
and because he engaged everything in Krishna's service, he didn't get contaminated by the three modes of nature.
Yes. I'm reminded of that story.
Good.
So it's so important that he said, although he lived a long life, he wasn't affected by the modes of passion, but actually it was transcendental.
It's
So
transcendental.
that's
And
yeah.
we all get what we have a certain need, and Krishna gives us what we need to live. And if we use all of that in Krishna's service, then we're perfectly situated and protected. Thank you, Ian.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Sham, can you read Sham Govinda? Would you like to read the slide?
Yes, thank you, Mother Samapriya. Srimad Bhagavatam 3:22-37. Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, and other men and living creatures? Purport. Every living entity within this material world is always afflicted by some kind of miseries pertaining either to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances. Distresses due to cold in winter and severe heat in summer always inflict miseries on the living entities in this material world. But one who has completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord and Krishna consciousness is in the transcendental stage. He is not disturbed by any miseries, either due to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances of summer and winter. He is transcendental to all these miseries.
That's another. What do you think, Sham?
No, nothing's coming to me. Just what a nice state that would be, to be not disturbed by anything, by something someone said to me, or put myself in that situation, some physical thing, not being disturbed. How peaceful. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that we can be happy only by being peaceful. So
Yeah, that's true. So we're learning that. We're learning how to become happy and transcend all of this. There's a teacher has her hand up. I wanted to hear what she says. I just want to add one thing real quick, that because we're expecting some reciprocation from the world, we become so vulnerable to everything around us. And that means we're affected by the material nature. We have to learn to put our Krishna conscious guards up, so if somebody offends us, that's a good opportunity to become humble. It's a lesson. This whole life is a lesson. Go on, Tisha. You have to unmute, darling.
Reading this little passage, for me, I hear Prabhupada saying, it doesn't say afflictions or things aren't going to happen to you. It says that you learn to transcend those situations.
Good.
And every day, it weighs on my heart to go at my work or with people engaging at the hotel, and they'll see a hurricane in South Florida and then say how blessed we are over here because we didn't get the hurricane. But I always think to myself, those afflictions happen everywhere. It's just a matter of, if you're Krishna consciousness, you understand these things happen, but it's part of material life. And my job is to remember Krishna and serve Krishna in all these situations and not feel better than anyone or less than anyone.
Good. That's beautiful. Cheta?
Thank you, Tisha. That was really helpful. Two things that I was remembering, a quote from His Holiness Ramapad Swami, who says, as devotees, we don't isolate ourselves, we insulate ourselves.
That's
And
a good one.
I like it.
Yeah, it's really
Okay.
good. Hare Krishna. Very good. Pati, did you want to say something?
Yeah, and in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains the process and what one must do. And then it's up to each individual to apply that, and to the proportion we apply that formula, is to the degree that we'll remain freed from and transcend those things. Matras parsus tukantaya shitoshna sukha dukada agama payano nityas tams datikshyas vabharata. That happiness and distress come and go like the winter and summer seasons. In other words, the three modes of material nature are always in flux. They're always going one way or another. And if we're constantly looking to this world and its interaction and flow of currents for our happiness, then naturally the happiness and distress are going to be what we experience. But if we focus like Manu, the prelude to this result was that he was always absorbed in hearing and chanting about Krishna, which is the transcendental stage. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kanksati sama sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labate param. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma na sochati na kanksati. That person doesn't hanker, nor do they lament, because they come to the Brahman stage, the eternal stage. We have to live in the eternal world from within our hearts, although externally we have to deal with this world. And that's our yoga.
That's yoga. That's real yoga. Very beautiful. Thank you. Okay, let's go on. This is the last verse before we get to the next chapter. Arundhati, I see you just joined us. Would you like to read this? Arundhati?
Sure, Mata. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:22, 38 to 39. In reply to questions asked by certain sages, he, Swayambhuva Manu, out of compassion for all living entities, taught the diverse sacred duties of men in general and the different varnas and ashramas. I have spoken to you of the wonderful character of Swayambhuva Manu, the original king, whose reputation is worthy of description. Please hear as I speak of the flourishing of his daughter Devahuti. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the third canto, 22nd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Marriage of Kardama Muni and Devahuti.
Thank you.
I'm glad Arundhati is feeling better. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back here. So this indicates that there are rules and regulations that we follow in order to achieve whatever we're going to do in our lives. And so with spiritual life, there are different guidelines that we take. It's not, I think Radhika said before, we're talking about control, but we put ourselves under the control of the proper process to become self-realized. And this Manu Samhita are the bylaws for all mankind. And I think who was saying before, Chaita, you were talking about how the same things are being done now as they were millions of years ago, because truth cannot be changed. The laws of mankind cannot be changed, no matter what yuga. And that's
Your speaking reminded me, I wanted to also highlight a point, that although he had emperor wealth, he wasn't degraded. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explained that generally, when conditioned souls get wealth, they become degraded. And you can see, look at the people on the planet today who are the wealthy ones, the actors and actresses, the sports people, the politicians, and how degraded they become and how quickly and actually Prabhupada gives the example that what is the value of these things if in your next life you're a dog? They weren't really beneficial for that living entity at all.
Okay, let's just go on, because I really wanted to touch on these things that I think are very important to have a little discussion about in the next chapter. And Tisha, why don't you read for us this beginning of this chapter?
Okay, chapter 23, Devahuti's Lamentation. So 3:23, verse 1. Maitreya continued, after the departure of her parents, the chaste woman, Devahuti, who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This specific example of Bhavani is very significant. Bhavani means the wife of Bhav, or Lord Shiva. Bhavani or Parvati, the daughter of the king of the Himalayas, selected Lord Shiva, who appears to be just like a beggar, as her husband. In spite of her being a princess, she undertook all kinds of tribulations to associate with Lord Shiva, who did not even have a house, but was sitting underneath the trees and passing his time in meditation. Although Bhavani was the daughter of a very great king, she used to serve Lord Shiva just like a poor woman. Similarly, Devahuti was the daughter of an emperor, Swayambhuva Manu. Yet she preferred to accept Kardama Muni as her husband. She served him with great love and affection, and she knew how to please him. Therefore, she is designated here as Sadhvi, which means a chaste, faithful wife. Her rare example is the ideal of Vedic civilization.
Yeah. Oh boy. So that word sadhvi, that is the glory of a woman. There are so many wonderful women who are glorified for this chastity. And of course, we have to understand that that is an example of how one should feel toward Krishna as a spiritual master, that kind of chastity, making their desire, the Lord's desire, above everything else. Okay, let's go on. And Arundhati, why don't you continue reading for us? Thank you, Tisha. And remember, we're coming up to the point where there might be some questions that we're very anxious to talk about. Go on, Arundhati.
SP 323-2. Maitreya continued. After the departure of her parents, the chaste woman Devahuti, who could understand the desires of her husband, served him constantly with great love, as Bhavani, the wife of Lord Shiva, serves her husband. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Here, two words are very significant. Devahuti served her husband in two ways, Vishrambhena and Gauravena. These are two important processes in serving the husband or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishrambhena means with intimacy, and Gauravena means with great reverence. The husband is a very intimate friend. Therefore, the wife must render service just like an intimate friend. And at the same time, she must understand that the husband is superior in position, and thus she must offer him all respect. A man's psychology and women's psychology are different. As constituted by bodily frame, a man always wants to be superior to his wife, and a woman, as bodily constituted, is naturally inferior to her husband. Thus, the natural instinct is that the husband wants to post himself as superior to the wife, and this must be observed. Even if there is some wrong on the part of the husband, the wife must tolerate it, and thus there will be no misunderstanding between husband and wife. Vishrambhena means with intimacy, but it must not be with familiarity that breeds contempt. According to the Vedic civilization, a wife cannot call her husband by name. In the present civilization, the wife calls her husband by name, but in Hindu civilization, she does not. Thus, the inferiority and superiority complexes are recognized. The Menacha, a wife has to learn to control herself even if there is a misunderstanding. Saurdena Vacha Madhuraya means always desiring good for the husband and speaking to him with sweet words. A person becomes agitated by so many material contacts in the outside world. Therefore, in his home life, he must be treated by his wife with sweet words.
Okay. Now I would like to explain a couple of things here. First of all, there is no question of staying with anyone who where there's a continued abusive relationship. That's not positive for anyone. That is not what's being said here. In fact, we have to remember the two basic principles. Do accept everything that's favorable for your Krishna consciousness and reject everything that is not. And if we find ourselves in a position where we're being abused, then obviously we don't remain in that position. Okay, now on the other hand, I remember when I first became a devotee and I read things like this, and I realized, okay, I just came from the sewer practically, the material world completely. I didn't know that I was supposed to follow any regulations. Must say, I was in the 60s, and all of Prabhupada's original disciples, we come from the 60s where we had different laws, Woodstock and rock and roll and drugs and, just the more wild you can be. We want to be free. We didn't know that freedom is based on regulation if we really want to be free, So when I read these things, I said, okay, I got to be honest with myself. I should take advantage of any situation that makes me in a humble position. Because humility, I still to this day, I'm feeling so much pride in whatever, it's like, that's the battle. That's the thing that keeps us in the material world. So if I have to be in a situation where I'm humbling myself, it's a lesson. It's a lesson that we must learn if we're going to get out of this material world. And we have to also understand, is it my pride or am I really being abused here? Because you can be abused by talk as well. So it's not, Prabhupada is not talking about abuse here. Or let's face it, there's a lot of times, and my good husband is here and he can confess that I'm not always submissive. I'm a little bit feisty. And
Let's talk a little bit about that intimacy, but with respect, because there's a sentence here, which is nice. It says, these two are important processes in serving the husband or the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah.
That's why I chose that picture of the gopis, because what we're talking about is how to develop a deep relationship with others, ultimately with the Krishna,
right.
in love. And there's a science to that.
There is a science, and this humility, and that's what that in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter, verses 8 to 12, which are the verses that are about knowledge. 19 points are referring to what is knowledge, and the first one is humility. We think we're so. I just read that in the Nectar of Devotion today. That one of the most important things is to do something in the material world and not want and not do it for profit, adoration, and distinction. That's not easy. That's not easy. We want to get motivated. So how do we get motivated? Everybody is applauding us. But if we do it for Krishna, and have enough faith, even the acharyas themselves are saying it's like dunkier, and it's like a prostitute dancing in your heart if you're doing something to get the glory.
Because we want to also hear from others. I'm interested to know what Arundhati thought when she was reading these sections.
Arundhati.
It sounds like she's in the corporate world and independent in some ways. I don't know if you're married or not. We're just learning to get to know each other in this forum. But what did you think?
Actually, I am in the corporate world, you're right. I'm married. And I have my husband is, I'd like to share it, because we're getting to know each other. My husband was born half Muslim and half Catholic. So, he didn't basically follow any religion. And I'm from a very conservative South Indian Hindu family. So, of course, we fought against our parents and everything. And eventually we got married and our parents love him. We have two beautiful, beautiful boys. Who kind of grew up in Sunday school. So they're kind of, partial devotees. They don't chant or anything, but at least I'm happy that they're vegetarians and, they fast for festivals and stuff. So that's my background basically. But the strangest part is that when the boys and I used to do kirtan, now we are empty nesters, but when the boys and I used to do kirtan at home, my husband would never join us. But that Narsingha prayer was so powerful, just used to enter his ears. And now after the boys have left the house, he and I do Narsingha prayer 5 days a week. It's an amazing thing. So that being said, when I was reading this, and actually when I was hearing your audio clips, I'm so sorry to say, I just could not digest this at all. I just found it and I'm like, Srila Prabhupada, why are you saying these things? Because firstly, it's for me, I mean, I've been reading the Bhagavad Gita and I attend these classes. It's so hard for me to digest. So what about other, newcomers who come in this and they are just going to say, I don't want to deal with this. I don't believe you treat women so poorly. They're supposed to be submissive to our husbands. Why don't you train men to be better men before you expect women to act in a certain way? Those were the only thoughts. And that's why I didn't even want to comment on the forum, because I said anything I say is going to be drastic and not nice.
Okay, well, it looks like you're not the only one who has thought that way, but there are ways to understand it. There are ways to understand it, and there are ways to use it for your own Krishna consciousness. We have made a mistake. We got off on the wrong station. That's why we are in the material world. This is not because of our good behavior, unfortunately. It's not. It's because we are desiring for everyone to appreciate who we are. And then the world will be happy if they only knew my glories. That keeps us here. So whatever it is, you're born in a woman's body. So the best thing is to be the perfect woman for Krishna. For Krishna. As I say again, strongly, do not put yourself in an abusive situation that is not good for you or the afflictor. That is not going to help anyone. And if it's not good for your Krishna consciousness, what to speak of your own physical and mental health, maybe leave that situation.
You brought up a good point, Arundhati. You stated that you and your husband fought against your parents, but I would assume that you don't feel abused by him. You've been together, you brought up 2 children, you're still living together. What about this element of intimacy and respect? Because you put in your little clip about how the men also have to be proper men. Obviously, that has to be there, otherwise there wouldn't be any respect, or not the proper respect. But if what we're talking about is the father, almost like the father of mankind, Manu, showing by his example how he brought up his daughter so that a proper relationship would develop with her husband, and ultimately even the Supreme Personality of Godhead became one of their children. So we see that it is ideal, and obviously ideal isn't always what we are going to experience, but there are principles that are being displayed here, not only between men and women, but between anybody. Intimacy and respect. I found this very profound concepts that deal with all psychology of interrelationships. Anybody else?
And you're sorry to interject, but thank you for that, because when I was reading it, I'm looking at it at such a superficial level of a man and a woman and a husband and a wife. And that's why these forums are so beautiful, when you bring into perspective the fact that it's for all relationships, and that is the beauty of it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, we are learning how to become devotees of Krishna, and we're all in different situations, and we have to take that as our field of activity. This is our schooling. Through whatever situation we are in, how can I be really Krishna conscious in this? This is what I've been given. This is the path. I haven't been given that person's life to become Krishna conscious, even though I would probably be better than that person is in her life. No, we have to use what we've been given to become. What's that quote? My husband always says it. Do what you can, where you are, with what you got. Chaita. Unmute, sweetie.
Unmute, yeah.
Such a great discussion. The idea occurs that we're looking for autonomy. Men, women, everyone wants to feel in control of their life, but social norms in Kali Yuga are completely against what's being given in this purport. And that's why it becomes offensive to women to hear this. But the reality is that Krishna is giving us, like you said, do the best you can with what you have, where you are. Krishna is giving us a very effective program in how to make the most of this situation, but people don't want to accept it because autonomy now means to be able to be free and experience whatever sense gratification you possibly can.
Based on false ego.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Not understanding that we're not this body. Ian, thank you, Chaitanya. Ian,
Yes, just the part, as Prabhu mentioned, there's a section which says, not with familiarity, with breeds contempt. And that is very significant. In other words, you're serving somebody, but you should not take the person for granted. She's my wife, so when I get home from work, she should, whatever she's doing, she should leave and, and tend to me. She might be doing something, so I couldn't help myself in the process. That's one part. And two, the idea of when you looked at, women being, should serve the husband, and I'm looking at, for example, where we say in an abusive situation, one should not really stay, whether one is a man or woman. Also, ultimately, we're not men or women who maybe occupy bodies, so on the transcendental level, we are spiritual beings. So, I'm saying that materially, we see ourselves as men or women, but transcendentally, we are, spirit souls.
yeah, we are spirit souls. And if we want to become pure spirit souls, then we use, as you said, all situations to improve ourselves and to come to the spiritual platform. Whatever situation we've been in, and each one of us has had different situations. Somehow or another, you have to come out of it becoming Krishna conscious. Okay, Tisha, does that help you a little, sweetie, to view things in a more encouraging manner? Let's say. On you.
Yes, thank you. It's a slow process, I guess, trying to understand, because we're all conditioned souls.
That's it.
And so are men. Men are conditioned souls too. And so
really? I thought only women were conditioned, though.
I want to make that clear.
Okay, thanks. Good. Hence, we are all here: birth, death, old age, and disease. So, in another way, give them a break a little. Give them a break. Yeah. Okay. So, but I'm glad. Okay, let's see if we can continue. This is a great discussion here. Who's next? Let's see. Premananda's not here. Radhika, would you like to read? Eka Radhika.
Yes, Mataji. Srimad Bhagavatam 3.23, 3-5. Working sanely and diligently, she pleased her very powerful husband, giving up all lust, pride, envy, greed, sinful activities, and vanity. The daughter of Manu, who was fully devoted to her husband, looked upon him as greater even than Providence. Thus, she expected great blessings from him. Having served him for a long time, she grew weak and emaciated due to her religious observances. Seeing her condition, Kardama, the foremost of celestial sages, was overcome with compassion and spoke to her in a voice choked with great love. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Here are some of the qualities of a great husband's great wife. Kardama Muni is great by spiritual qualification. Such a husband is called Teji Jamsan, most powerful. Although a wife might be equal to her husband in advancement in spiritual consciousness, she should not be vainly proud. Sometimes it happens that the wife comes from a very rich family, as did Devahuti, the daughter of Emperor Swayambhuva Manu. She could have been very proud of her parentage, but this is forbidden. The wife should not be proud of her parental position. She must always be submissive to the husband and must give up all vanity. As soon as the wife becomes proud of her parentage, her pride creates great misunderstanding between the husband and wife, and their nuptial life is ruined. Devahuti was very careful about that. And therefore, it is said here that she gave up pride completely. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, pride. That's it. That's it. You know, but that's why we're here, to give up our pride. That's why we're in the material world, to give up pride and to accept the humble position in relation to Krishna. So this marriage, it is an opportunity to practice that. And of course, everyone knows when I say that, it means without abuse, either way, for man or woman. But thank you, Radhika. Chaita, you want to go on? Chaita, you with us?
Hari Bol, sorry. Purport continued. The wife is expected to be of the same category as the husband. She must be prepared to follow the principles of the husband, and then there can be a happy life. If the husband is a devotee and the wife is materialistic, there cannot be any peace in the home. Oh, amen to that. The wife must see the tendencies of the husband and must be prepared to follow him. From Mahabharata, we learn that when Gandhari understood that her would-be husband, Dhritarashtra, was blind, she immediately began to practice blindness herself. Thus, she covered her eyes and played the part of a blind woman. She decided that since her husband was blind, she must also act like a blind woman. Otherwise, she would be proud of her eyes, and her husband would be seen as inferior. The word samanuvrata indicates that it is the duty of the wife to adopt the special circumstances in which the husband is situated.
Okay, so I think we had a discussion, you and I, together about this one time. What do you think about that? I mean,
I think this emphasis on getting rid of the pride is very appropriate. We can't be looking at things through our own vision, but we need to see ourselves through Krishna's eyes. And he puts us in a situation where we can make the most advancement spiritually. And that doesn't mean accruing more and more egoism and pride, and the world is just giving completely contrary messages to this.
It is so confusing, isn't it? It really, even amongst people who are more elevated, you know, devotee, we have to accept our situation, and then we have to become Krishna conscious within it. It might not be like anyone else's. Of course, no one's that unique, really. Let's face it. We're not that special, but we might not see a duplicate of that anywhere in the world, in our small world. But that doesn't mean we don't accept our situation and try to become Krishna conscious within it. Very important.
Sam, there are 3 slides left.
Oh, let's go on.
Let's finish them up.
Faye.
Oh, hold it. Faye had something.
Faye, are you there? Did you? Oh, Faye, please, you read and comment and then read.
Yes, Mataji. I would like respectfully to open either the question publicly or privately, however your wisdom directs you. Can you address the issues of those of us who are divorced and have no husband to be our protector, or have no sons or husband to be our protector? And
very good.
Could you also address the issues of those of us who are divorced because our spouse wasn't willing to be a devotee? Where do we fall in the gist of things? In other words, I'm asking it because that's the situation I'm in.
Right.
Am I a widow, or what am I?
Okay,
Um,
you are a devotee,
yeah.
first of all. You're a devotee.
Yes.
That's the first thing. And this whole thing with being married is to help us to understand our position of being a devotee, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
And yeah, I spent some time, years, wearing white many years ago, 38 years ago, for 10 years.
You might want to
Uh,
explain what wearing white
Oh,
means.
wearing white means that you take the role of a renunciate, a woman who is without a husband, you know. And when I read in the fifth canto that when a woman is in that position and is dependent on Krishna, he takes more care of her because you're not depending on anyone else, which is actually our situation, no matter what it is. To the extent that we depend on someone else, Krishna says, okay, I'll let them take care of it. You know, you are in a right, anyone without a husband, anyone without a son, you're a human being, you're a devotee, then you do a Draupadi. You do a Draupadi, hands up, and that's what it is.
You
Krishna
might want to tell
protect.
that. You might want to tell that story doing a Draupadi.
Okay, do you know what that means, do a Draupadi? Well, that's a Samapri expression. Do a
So
Draupadi.
when
Okay.
Draupadi threw her arms up to the heavens, she relinquished all control that she
Right.
had over her sari.
Right.
Her sari was being pulled violently by the men in the assembly
Right. Good girl.
to undress her. And she knew the sari
Publicly.
was only so long, and she would be naked in the presence of the assembly. She had no one to call on but Krishna. And at the moment she throws her hands up, the rescue entails, because the sari becomes endless. And since they kept pulling and she's still spinning and they're pulling, they gave up after a while and stopped tormenting her publicly.
So it's a symbolic story
Yes.
of how no one, even the most powerful warrior husbands on earth, weren't saving her, but Krishna did.
Yes.
So as Samapriya was saying previously, the complete dependence on Krishna is going to be your most precious path.
And whoever thinks, well, I don't have to go that route yet because I have all these things taken care of me, they're an illusion. They're an illusion. So actually, you're in a very auspicious position to take complete shelter. And how do we take shelter? Shravanam Kirtanam. You
Yes.
chant like your life depends on it. And guess what? It does. It does depend on it. You just chant the holy name and read these books and associate with devotees. And then you've done, then you're worthy of, you're showing Krishna that you're dependable. You're dependable. You're a dependable servant. You're not going anywhere. He can depend on you to serve and to develop a relationship with him.
The
So-
other thing that I wanted to comment before we miss the flow of the story here, the wife's position, serving intimately and with great respect. My last position, I had 5 vice presidents that I served as a secretary and an office administrator. And because it was military affiliations, because it was corporate affiliations, I found that a humble, submissive attitude was the perfect route to pleasing all of them. And also to know my place, to know that my job was dependent upon their favor, dependent upon me doing a very good job and anticipating their needs. I was never on their level, therefore there was no quote attempt to feel intimately close to those wealthy or powerful positions or people. It kept me in a modality of servanthood. And if you know anything about being a secretary, you realize you know all their secrets. Therefore, I was on an intimate level in one way. I knew the secrets, but I also had to be trustworthy, reliable, quiet, anticipate their needs before they ever asked. And in many
Wow.
ways, spiritually, if we can do that, interacting in our marriage with our spouses, we can be intimate with them without losing respect, without denying them the respect that they deserve as a Krishna
Right.
conscious husband.
And also, it's not that it's easy sometimes because our own false ego gets involved. If to the extent
Yes.
that we're Krishna conscious, then, and my husband can vouch for that. See, we're being wide open here. It's not that it's always perfect, you know,
Yeah.
but if you want to, if we have this philosophy and we respect each other as devotees, and what to speak of, you know,
It made me admire Draupadi even more because she had 5 husbands to attend to. And here I was with 5 vice presidents to attend to.
oh, I see, comparing
Okay.
yourself to Draupadi, all right.
No, but on a very fallen level.
Okay.
Had to be on my
Just
toes,
kidding.
to be
That's good.
flexible.
That's
And
good.
yes,
You
I'm
see,
glad I retired.
okay. No, this is very good. See, we have so much network of knowledge that we can use to become self-realized. Thank you, Faye. That was sweet. Okay, let's see if we can finish. That would be great. Well, I knew this was going to take some time.
Let's just try and read through the next one. Sam,
Okay, we'll
because
just
that
read
way
through it.
we won't have
Then-
to come back to them next week.
Okay, Faye, while you're here, why don't you read this, sweetie? And then Mandatara.
Or Srimad Bhagavatam 3.23, 6 through 7. Kardama Muni said, O respectful daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, today I'm very much pleased with you for your great devotion and most excellent loving service. Since the body is so dear to embodied beings, I'm astonished that you have neglected your own body to use it on my behalf. I have achieved the blessings of the Lord in discharging my own religious life of austerity, meditation, and Krishna consciousness. Although you have not yet experienced these achievements, which are free from fear and lamentation, I shall offer them all to you because you are engaged in my service. Now just look at them. I am giving you the transcendental vision to see how nice they are.
Wow. Go on. All right. Mandatara, why don't you read the next slide? Thank you. This is really important. Go on, Mandatara.
Purport. What are the graces of the Lord? It is stated here that the graces of the Lord are abhaya, free from fearfulness. In the material world, if someone accumulates $1 million, he is always full of fear because he's always thinking, what if the money is lost? But the benediction of the Lord, Bhagavat Prasad, is never to be lost. It is said to be enjoyed. There is no question of loss. One simply gains and enjoys gaining. Bhagavad Gita also confirms this. When one achieves the grace of the Lord, the result is that sarva dukkani. All distresses are destroyed. Dukkani. When situated in a transcendental position, one is freed from the 2 kinds of material diseases, hankering and lamentation. This is also stated in Bhagavad Gita. After devotional life begins, we can achieve the full result of love of Godhead. Love of Krishna is the highest perfection of Bhagavat Prasada, or divine mercy. This transcendental achievement is so greatly valuable that no material happiness can compare to it.
Very good. Okay, before we start commenting, let's just finish reading it and then we'll have a little discussion at the end. Shukshma, would you like to read the next slide? Unmute, sweetie. Unmute.
Okay, here we go. Let me find it. Kardama Muni continued, what is the use of enjoyments other than the Lord's grace? All material achievements are subject to be annihilated simply by a movement of the eyebrows of Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By your principles of devotion to your husband, you have achieved and can enjoy transcendental gifts, very rarely obtained by persons proud of aristocracy and material possessions. Purport. Love of God is not, do you want me to read the purport?
Yes, please.
Love of God is not an ordinary commodity. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was worshipped by Rupa Goswami because he distributed love of God, Krishna Prema, to everyone. Rupa Goswami praised him as Mahavadanaya, a great munificent personality, because he was freely distributing to everyone love of Godhead, which is achieved by wise men only after many, many births. Krishna Prem, Krishna consciousness, is the highest gift which can be bestowed on anyone whom we presume to love. One word used in this verse, Nija Dharma Dohan, is very significant. Devahuti, as the wife of Kardama Muni, achieved an invaluable gift from her husband because she was very faithful to him. For a woman, the first principle of religion is to be faithful to her husband. If, fortunately, the husband is a great personality, then the combination is perfect and the lives of both the wife and the husband are at once fulfilled.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, what do you think about this one, Shukshma?
Oh, I just missed it. It just went back. I got to find it.
Okay, go back, Patsy. Go back for 1 second, please. Thank you.
Here it is. Oh,
So
Oh,
the
okay.
combination for a woman, the principle of religion is to be faithful to her husband. That says a lot to the world if someone is in that position.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
Well, I'm looking mostly at the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributing love freely in this age of Kali, with making it very easy. The chanting of the Hare Krishna, the dancing, the feasting, the preaching, the book distribution. We don't have to sit somewhere for 10,000 years like Kardama before he finally sees Krishna. We don't have to follow the eightfold system. They were
Right.
both Maha yogis. Yeah.
But there is one thing. There is one thing, and that's what Manvantara read just in the previous slide. In the previous slide, you want to put that up there, Patti? In the previous, because she gave us a nice into it. This mercy. What is the mercy? This fearlessness. What is that? What are we afraid of, Manvantara? Why is that mercy?
Mm. Oh, okay. I remember. Yikes.
Mercy.
What is that mercy?
I think it's called graces in the
Grace.
purport. So you don't
Right.
get
I'm sorry. It
confused.
was the grace. It was grace. What is the grace of the Lord? That is the fearlessness of the Lord. That is the fearlessness. But what are we afraid of?
Rebirth.
Right. We're afraid of
With
rebirth.
the animal life going down.
Yeah. Right. We're afraid of death. We're afraid of death. We're fearful. Manvantara, I want you to say something. Thank you,
Yeah.
Sushma.
Yeah. So the fearlessness is the death. I was thinking though, with that trust is a very important part of being in the relationship, and understanding the relationship between two qualified people in mankind, like Devahuti and Kardama Muni. They were both equally yoked, and it's not and trust was there. It's not like she did all this penance and he turned around and gave it to another young girl. You know what I mean? It was all based on trust. And it's difficult for us to understand, and I totally get it, because Kali Yuga, isn't there 4 principles and the bull is standing on one leg and one of that leg is truth? You know, you know, in Kali Yuga we lose a lot of stuff, but
You
truth,
lose it all. Truth is supposed to be there, although
yeah. And
what does Mother Earth says something like that? She says that she can handle anything but a liar. Someone who is not truthful. That's what,
yeah. So in spiritual life, if you're not truthful, you know, when you get into a relationship, it's very difficult to do some kind of yagya and it come out properly if trust is not there.
Right.
So yeah, I just wanted to say that. I just think it's difficult to understand if we're approaching it from, you know, from a degree of contamination, you know, but.
yeah. Good. Shukshma, did you want to say something else? Because I see you driving now. Oh, you're not driving? You're done? All right, let's have a little, is everybody, this was a very deep session, I think, that, but you want to put it back to the forum? There we all are. There we all are. Oh my goodness.
Can I just say
Oh,
something? Just 10 seconds or something.
yeah, please. And then Arundhati. Yes, Sean, say something.
Oh, sorry, I just cut in. Sorry.
Oh, that's, go ahead.
Well, just from like young man's side, like when Shamadashini does give me like the trust, since we're talking about trust, to be the supporter in the relationship. I mean, it's her compassionate qualities that kind of like form me or give me the backbone to have the same. So, so the woman controls in that way anyway.
Well, it's both controlling, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's both. And if you're giving, and there's not a gratefulness there and a reciprocation, both have to be there, you know, and it seems like you're both blessed very, very wonderfully. You also have been both blessed. So I think that it does. We can't take the responsibility away from anyone. Whenever there's a relationship, sometimes I talk to Krishna about that because sometimes I don't have the eyes to see how he's answering me, you know, and I wonder if he's really involved with me. But of course he is. And that's just to make us cry for him, which he's really good at, you know. And okay, Arundhati. Is that all right, Shyam Govinda?
Yeah, I was just trying to give the other perspective, how the woman, if it's mutual respect, the woman is controlling in some way too.
Of course, both are there. Both have to know. It's like the yin and the yang in the universe. The yin, the positive and negative. Everybody, one can't live without the other. Just like in Krishna within him is devotion to Krishna. And that's Srimati Radharani. That he doesn't, it's part of him. Devotion to him is part of him. So both are there. And he comes with devotion to him.
So how does that relate to the man-woman experience?
Because in any relationship, there has to be a harmony. There has to be people like to say a give and take. It's more a give on both parts, giving understanding and love and trust. But it's much easier to get along with your partner if both are willing to be open in the relationship and be a contributor, you know. But still, we're all born with different qualities. Women are different than men, and I'm sure we can all understand that. And things become more natural for a woman like having babies and taking care of the babies. That's very natural for a woman. A man could be like you're taking care of your son, then that's very natural for you too.
If I'm not mistaken, Sham, aren't you sharing that when the wife or the woman is displaying these qualities, it inspires the man to be a better man, and therefore, in a sense, she's not just being controlled; she's part of the mix, part of the relationship, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, it's in the text also. But thank you. I mean, both persons got it. Mother Summer Priya also got what I was saying. But yeah, I mean, Karavamani felt compassion upon Devahuti. Otherwise, his love was deepened because she had, emaciated her body in his service. So he pushed on in his service. He was inspired.
I think your baby has something to say about this too.
Yeah.
Arundhati?
Arundhati. Thank you, Sham.
I was very curious on your realizations, Mother, when you wore white for 10 years. If we don't have the time for it in this session, maybe in our next session, we're very, very curious about, the reason you went onto it, your realizations in the 10 years you were, and what made you take it off.
Well, that's a long.
Whenever-
I you know what? You should send me your address. I'll send you my book, The Divine Love Trip.
I'll absolutely do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think we've
I think we're good.
gone a little bit over today, but it was a wonderful, deep topics. Thank you, everyone. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Please accept my obeisances. Thank you all. This was a very sweet session.
Yeah, have a good week. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna. Have a good week.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Bye bye.
Krishna.